Chapter 16 of the appraisal. And so this chapter, we're going to go over valuations and the methods and approaches that an appraiser takes into consideration. So chapter 16 on appraisals. We're going to talk about those differences among various types of value. We're going to talk about the theory of valuation. We're going to explain the three approaches to value. And we're going to discuss the profession of appraising and what's required to get an appraiser's license and the differences between the different types of appraiser's licenses, and then some. First, let's talk about a market. What is a marketplace in general? It's a place where the consumer comes to buy goods and the sellers come to sell them, right? So a marketplace is where buyers and the consumers and sellers can come together to sell and buy each other's goods, right? And that's very convenient if they could come all to one central place and push their goods and sell their goods, and buyers can come to buy them. But real estate's an imperfect market because you can't take the real estate to the people. You got to take the people out to the real estate. Nobody's buying real estate online, sight unseen. You're going to want to go to the property. And I don't foresee anybody ever doing that, buying real estate just online. I mean, at some point, they would have had to have seen it before they go make that purchase. Otherwise, just buying it blindly based on what somebody shows you images of, it's kind of wacky, right? So I don't foresee that ever happening. So real estate's an imperfect market. You can't take the goods out to the people. You got to take the people out to the goods. Ooh, fancy. There are 5 attributes to land. 1, it's finite in its supply. That means that there's no new land being created. Whatever's there is there. It's physically immobile. Can't pick it up and put it in a better neighborhood. It's durable. You could drop a bomb on it, it'll still be there, right? It has its own unique location and characteristics. What's important to the consumer, location, 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 right? And it's useful to people. If it doesn't serve a purpose to people, how can it have value, right? Now, why did I mention these 5 attributes? Well, let me ask you a question. No, that's the 5 attributes to, in order for land to have value, it has to have these things. It's limited in its supply, because if there's an overabundance of properties, what's going to happen to the value? It goes down, right? Supply and demand, right? It's physically immobile. Can't pick it up and put it to a better neighborhood. Oh, I love this house. I love the size of the lot. If it was in a better neighborhood, you can't pick it up and put it in a better neighborhood, right? It's durable. It'll last forever. It's unique and it's useful to people. So its uniqueness could add value to it, right?
Yeah.
So what is supply and demand? Well, supply is the amount of goods offered for sale in the marketplace at any given period of time. Okay. And demand is the number of people ready, willing, and able to accept those goods and services at any given price during a given period of time. So when supply increases, prices will drop. When demand increases, prices will rise. So this principle states that the value of a property increases if the supply of such property decreases and the demand for it either increases or remains constant, and vice versa. That means the opposite is possible. The reverse is possible. So what is value? Value is the monetary worth of goods, products, or services offered in a marketplace at any given period. And value is always equal to 100%. Anytime we talk about value, we're talking about all of it. So value can then be described as the present worth of future benefits. So value does not remain the same over time. It varies as the market changes. Market prices fluctuate over time. You could have a house that you're living in, you don't do nothing to it, and its value is going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down. You're just occupying it, right? It's just going up, going down. You don't have to do any improvements. You don't need to let it run down. You're maintaining it, but the value goes up and it goes down based on what's going on around you, based on economy, based on a lot of different factors. Economy, politics, the demand for homes in the area by other consumers. There's a lot of things like that. Changes in populate in weather patterns. In local industry. All of these things affect that marketplace, right? So remember, here's that tip that I gave you guys a while ago, and now we're in the valuation period of this. So here's that class you could take to sharpen your valuation skills, taught by a group of appraisers here in New Jersey, Ottawa, OTTEAU.com, if you recall. And you guys should take that CMA workshop. But they do give seasonal workshops too. So if they're not giving that CMA workshop at any given time, you can take that seasonal workshop where they give you updates each season. They give market updates of what's expected to be happening in the next quarter, the next season. So they give those seasonal market conditions. And if you subscribe to their forecasts, they could also, they'll also email them to you, these reports. Also, go subscribe to their Facebook page. You could get some news from them, which is pretty interesting. Sometimes you get some news, and you could then take their story, use that as a basis, their article as a basis for content that you're going to then talk about on a blog on your own real estate websites, thus building unique content, thus building traffic. You share those links about that unique story that you just made up now, and you're going to share that on your Facebook page, and then people get involved, start talking about it. Drives traffic to your websites. That's how you get traffic to your websites. It's unique real estate related content. Now, here are the real estate views during tax time. The owner sees their property like this, the buyer sees it like that, the real estate agent like that, the appraiser like that, and the tax man sees it like that, right? But when we're looking to sell our houses, all of a sudden the owner looks at it like that. Right? It's true. The owner doesn't look at their house like that during tax season. They're like, oh, no, this is my house right here, But all of a sudden now, when we're trying to determine a value to list it for sale, now all of a sudden they think they're living in the castle. And yeah, it's sometimes difficult to talk them down to sanity and reality there. So once again, value can be described as the present worth of future benefits arising from the ownership of real property. And on page 304, we should highlight that, because that is a definition we'll need to know for exams. Hint, hint. All right. Situs is a people's preference for location on page 305 as well. Well, on page 305 at the top, the other thing was 304, this is 305. Highlight people's preference for location is referred to as situs. That's the way it's pronounced. I like to pronounce it as situs, because once you find that perfect location where you want to move, you want to build a house.
Sit us there.
Yep, we're going to sit us right here. So that's the way I remember it, And so what are the three factors when the value? Location, and location. That echo came.
Wait, one second. Okay. 1 second. I'm trying to take a picture.
So one of those links on that slide, we're talking about your people's preference of location. And if we look back in history, let's just look back to the Homesteading Act. That was signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln in 1862. Under the new law, any U.S. citizen could gain 160 acres of unoccupied land west of the Mississippi River and east of the Rocky Mountains. They could keep the land if they lived on the land for at least 5 years and made improvements to the land. So you could claim 160 acres of land and you would own it, and it would be your land. Look at this historic picture here. These little kitties. Hold on, let me zoom in on that. Look at that. Yeah. Little kids. That's tough times back then, huh? Talk about roughing it. No indoor plumbing or any of that. You know, working the land. Look at that house. Looks like a mud hut. You know, hey, you got to build your house, live in that house, work the land. So homesteading was a great opportunity for many people, especially immigrants who just moved to the United States. Anyone who is over 21 years old can own land, including former slaves, immigrants, and single women. So the land rush, here's a picture of it, a historic picture. Yeah, they did have photography back then. It was just the beginning stages. Remember, with the gunpowder, would take the flash and, you know, they would print it on a piece of tin. So different areas of land were open for homesteading at different times, and this often created land rushes, where people would then have races to claim areas, plots of land that are available. Those plots of land were already measured out. They'd have a flag with a number on them, or they would have a flag, with a number on them, and then each person in the race would be issued they have to pay a fee to join the race here. And when they claimed that piece, they could grab that flag, and then that land, that 160 acres, was theirs. So they were racing off to find it, right? So by McKinney Family Picture Album. So this is the family, I guess, that took that picture. Now in Oklahoma, we have the Sooners. One of the major land rushes occurred in Oklahoma on April 22nd, 1889. Around 50,000 people. So this should be representing 50,000 people that lined up there to claim around 2 million acres of prime land. And at high noon, they were allowed to enter the area and claim that land. Some people snuck onto the land earlier and hid it in order to lay claim to those areas. So they were cheaters. And these people were nicknamed Sooners because they got there sooner than the rest of you. And today, the mascot of the University of Oklahoma is the Sooner. Huh. Imagine that. Your school mascot is based on a cheater. Puts things into perspective a little bit, huh? So around 10,000 homesteaders settled around the area that's known as Oklahoma City today. The next day, April 23rd, 1889, the city was established with a population of over 10,000 people. It would later become the capital of the state of Oklahoma. And here's some interesting facts about the land Oklahoma, or the Homesteading Act and the land rush. Northerners wanted the land to be developed by small farmers rather than large plantation owners from the South. They were afraid plantation owners would use slaves to farm the land. There was an $18 fee to file the application to get a plot of land. Later, Homesteading Act allowed for even more, double 320 acres for dry land farming and 640 acres for ranching. By 1934, 270 million acres of land in the United States have been given away by the United States government. That's around 10% of the entire land mass in the United States. And then homesteading ended in 1976. except for in Alaska where it ended around 1986. In the book Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls' dad claims a homestead in Kansas. Look at that. Interesting factoids, a little history there. Oh, what's going on here? There we go. Back to normal size. All right. And then if we go back, even on Wikipedia, let me see, does that still exist? Yeah. So in Wikipedia, you could see that photograph. Okay, they're wanting money. They give that history about those the territories, what happened to any displaced Indians from those territories, etc. Agreement between the government and the Indians. Here's a drawing of that same photograph that was shown to you a moment ago. This one seems a lot more proper, like they're trotting out there. But yeah, it was more of a mess. It was a hot mess of a race there with a bunch of cheaters and such going over the finish line sooner. Here's the actual photo again. That's more accurate depiction. It gives a whole little history here about the different Indians that occupied those territories, and then the Homesteading Act and the Boomers and the Sooners and yada yada. Then talks about David Payne. That's an interesting history story. William Couch. African Americans being able to settle the land and not worry about racism. They could actually own land. So once again, when you hear people modern day right now, we've been hearing a lot right now, people always making this accusation, oh, Americans, they were these white colonizers, you know. Well, you know what? You also had African Americans that claimed some of that land and became landowners too, that were former slaves, right? So, I mean, it is everybody. So you can't just claim that. You got a lot of ignorant people out there these days that try to rewrite history for God knows what reason. I don't know. I'm a realist. I like to see how it really was. And, you know, the Indians got negatively affected, definitely. But you know what? Even before we came here, the Indians were fighting amongst themselves for the land. There was always people fighting and conquering lands since the beginning of time. You know, it's just who changes the ownership of land. You got to realize that. You know, it's amazing to me. The younger generations, they're always they act like they're so morally superior to everybody because they never experienced any hardships, I guess, in their lives, right? So I guess they could sit around and ponder these things and accuse everybody else, but yet they're not willing to give up their houses or their cars or their cell phones. Right? So there was a movie actually called Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And this movie, actually, it was a love story, but it was also a little bit of a drama. It was entertaining. Anybody ever see this, Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman? Another movie that's real estate related pertaining to this, the Great Land Rush, because towards the end, this is where it ended up, where they were racing to actually claim their own land. He was an Irishman. Once again, they were looked down upon as well as a poor class of people, Irishman. And, well, she was a woman, you know, and women were looked down upon as well. So these two got together trying to get their own independence and build their lives and make something for themselves. And they ended up actually hooking up, becoming a love story, and you know, they entered this land race. So it was interesting. Now, there's 4 economic characteristics for land to have value: demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. There has to be a need or desire by someone who could afford the land. Utility, serving a human need or desire. Scarcity, it's limited in its supply. And transferability, the ownership can be easily transferred from one person to the next. If that's not true, then who's going to want to buy it? It's going to greatly affect the value of the land. So let me ask you a question. Which one of these four economic characteristics to value would apply to this situation? A developer builds a big community with 500 new homes. And now I wanna get a piece of property if the city will give me a permit to put in a combination laundromat and convenience store. Which one of these four economic characteristics to value would apply to my situation, my scenario?
Wait a minute, repeat the question.
Sure. A builder just builds 500 brand new homes in the area.
Right.
And I want to get a piece of property if the city will give me a permit to put in a combination laundromat and convenience store. Which one of those four economic characteristics to value would apply to my situation?
Demand.
Utility.
Oh, I was about to say that because I'm just reading. It says service and a human need
or
desire.
You got 500 new homes in that area. They're going to need a convenience store and a
laundromat. If they don't have it, even if they do have it, they're going to need it.
Yeah.
Okay. Ouch.
All right. So what is an appraisal? Well, it's an unbiased estimate or opinion of value. But that opinion is based on supportable evidence. An appraiser is not just pulling numbers out of thin air, you know. They're using approved appraisal methods. And the person who generates that value is a licensed appraiser. Now, appraising is a profession that requires licensing. And an appraiser is the person that gets licensed and does that. They're that independent person. They doesn't work for the lender. So they're an independent person. They don't work for anybody. Okay, it doesn't work for the lender. The fee is paid by the borrower for the appraisal. The lender selects the appraiser, but the fee is paid by the borrower, and they're trained to provide an unbiased estimate or opinion of value. So they're not beholden to anybody. So let's highlight what an appraisal is. Hold on, give me 1 sec. Let me know when you got that.
Got it.
Now, on pages 314, 315, 318, they talk about appraising and the profession of appraising. We're going to get to it towards the end of this chapter because those are the last pages of this chapter, but I'm going to bring it up right now on the next slide as well. You start off as an apprentice trainee. Then you graduate to a residential appraiser. Then you can move on to get certified as a residential appraiser. And then you could become a certified general appraiser. Those are the four types of appraiser licenses. Now, these are the current things that are required to become an apprentice trainee of an appraiser. The first step, a beginner can earn the status of apprentice trainee after they complete 90 hours of appraisal study and pass a successful exam. And then you're an apprentice. You can become a licensed residential appraiser once you complete an additional 150 classroom hours of courses and have 2,000 hours of experience in no fewer than 12 months as the apprentice trainee. Then you could and you still have to work under one of the certified appraisers. The applicant for a certified, to become certified residential appraiser has to have a college degree now, because some politician, after the whole mortgage meltdown thing that happened years ago, some politician stepped in wanting to play a hero, and so they say, oh, well, I put a more stringent standard in place so that we don't come across these problems again, because appraisers were overvaluing properties, which that's not true. Appraisers were valuing properties at whatever somebody was willing to pay for them. And because they could get mortgage loans now to pay more, people were willing to pay more and get loans to pay more. And homeowners thus wanted more. So the appraiser does their appraiser based on evidence, and once they show that a house sold for a certain amount, well, now that's the value direction that it's going. So they could base their opinions of value based on solid evidence and data and using approved methods, and they could prove it over and over again. So some politician stepped forward and said, well, we're going to blame everybody except for politicians, even though it was the politicians that were the root of the cause of the whole mortgage meltdown thing. But they stepped forward and they said, you know what? The appraisers were a big part of the problem. So you know what? I put together a more stringent policy and more education being required for appraisers who want to get licensed. Okay, so now if you want to become a certified residential appraiser who could do appraisals on their own, and have residential and apprentice trainees underneath you, you have to have an associate's degree or higher. A degree in what? It don't matter.
Really?
It could be in gender studies. So did that politician who put in a more stringent education requirement, did it really amount to a hill of beans? No, it's just word salad that they just yap and like to hear their own voices. Having a more stringent education requirement, and it could be in any topic, please. So the associate degree or higher is required, and applicants without a degree can substitute 21 semester credits in English, economics, math, business, or law courses. The student must also complete 200 hours in approved appraisal courses and have 2,500 hours of experience in a period of not less than 24 months. So you have to have at least 2 years of appraisal experiences, doing 2,500 hours of experience in appraisals in no less than 2 years. Now, keep in mind, a certified residential appraiser, even though you can work on your own, both licensed and certified residential appraisers must pass exams and may conduct residential appraisals of no more than $1 million. So now you could only appraise residential properties that are under $1 million. If you want to appraise residential properties or commercial properties over $1 million, well, you need to get the next type of license type, become a certified general appraiser. Now, listen, residential appraisers and certified residential appraisers, they can appraise commercial properties if they're working under a certified general appraiser who's supervising them. So in order to become a certified general appraiser, the student has to have now a bachelor's degree or higher. An applicant without a degree can substitute 30 semester credit hours in courses mentioned above previously here, and 2 elective courses in accounting, geography, AG economics, business management, or real estate. It sounds like those without a degree probably are the better candidates that are more skilled in this, right? In addition to 300 hours of approved residential courses are required, and an apprenticeship of 3,000 hours of experience in a period of 2.5 years or more, with at least 1,500 of those 3,000 hours being in appraising non-residential properties. So unlike the residential appraisers, certified general appraisers have no monetary caps on the types of properties that they can appraise. They can appraise any type of property, commercial property, land, or residential properties over $1 million. In any case, all the appraisers have to complete a 15-hour national USPAP course. That's the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. So the real estate appraiser license law requires that individuals who wish to be licensed or certified as appraisers must undergo a criminal background check as well. Okey-doke. All right, so you guys know how we as real estate agents, we become members of NAR, National Association of Realtors, and then we need to complete our Realtors Code of Ethics training class every 3 years. Well, what the Realtors Code of Ethics training class is to us, USPAP is to appraisers. Their Uniform Standard of Professional Appraisal Practice. Okay, so those are the 4 license types. Let me ask you a question. What license type? Okay, so I also threw this slide together for you. Talks about the USPAP, but also something called MAI. The appraisers become members of the Appraisal Institute. Like we realtors become a member of NAR, National Association of Realtors. So what NAR is to us, MAI is to appraisers. What USPAP is to realtors, what the Code of Ethics is to realtors, USPAP is to appraisers. To give you a better understanding of what these things are. And here's the breakdown of the license types again. Now let me ask you a question. What type of license is required to do an appraisal?
Broker?
Certified general appraiser.
It's kind of a trick question.
I mean, we're not appraisers, so
It's kind of a trick question. What kind of license is required to do an appraisal? And we just went over each one of these. It's an appraiser's license.
so
Any of them. I didn't say what kind of appraisal. I just said what kind of license is required to do an appraisal. If you get a question worded like that on an exam, don't look too far into it. Even though we studied, there's different types of appraiser licenses. Now you're going to be trying to scan your mind. Well, hold on. I didn't give you enough ammunition to figure it out. The only kind of information I gave you was that you know that some sort of appraiser's license is required. So it's an appraiser's license. It's required to do an appraisal. Now, if I ask you a question like, what kind of appraiser's license is required to appraise a residential property valued at $1.2 million, you're going to say
a general appraiser's license.
a certified general appraiser's license. You know, so most of the time the answer on the state exam is either going to be just an appraiser's license or certified general appraiser. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anytime an appraiser wants to value a property for somebody who's getting an FHA loan, FHA loans require appraisers to complete a special designation class certifying that they could do appraisals for these loans because they're required to look out for certain levels of repair or disrepair. Like if the paint is peeling or the steps are cracked and the railing is loose, you're not going to get an FHA loan. So it's actually not a home inspection, but the appraiser that has to report the status of these things. They have to look out for certain things, and that's what they take that special designation course for, so they know what to look out for and note on their appraisals. So in order to do an appraisal for an FHA loan, FHA loans require appraisers to complete special designation classes. They have to get a designation on their license. You guys recall what they call the appraisal? What do they call an appraisal statement for a VA loan?
I don't remember.
It's named after a car. Still don't remember?
No.
The Honda CRV, remember?
Oh, yeah. CRV. That's right. That's right.
The Certificate of Reasonable Value, the CRV.
I remember
All right.
now.
Moving back,
CRV.
market value. My voice is going on me now. You gotta have these throat sprays, you know, for when you talk a lot, you know, speaker's voice and clear voice and all kinds of things like that. Voice tends to go, puts a lot of strain on your voice, your muscles. Okay, so market value is the price that a ready, willing, and able buyer who's not forced to buy will pay a seller who's not forced to sell. We as real estate agents help property owners, the sellers, as well as buyers determine market value. Appraisers also help determine market value. It's the most probable price that a property will bring based on supportable evidence. Payment has to be made in cash or its equivalent, like a mortgage loan. No bartering and trades. It has to have had reasonable length of time exposed to the open market, and both the buyer and seller are acting without undue pressure. And both parties must be well informed about the property's assets, defects, and its potential. The valuation is estimated by a real estate licensee or a licensed appraiser to determine market value. And market value assumes an arm's length transaction. If there's an arm's length between us, what does that mean?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
If there's an arm's length between us, what does that mean?
That means that there's an arm's distance left between us.
That means we're not that close.
Oh, that's what you mean. But see, I don't know what you mean when you.
Well, I was just, you know, get a little thing here. It's not like we're hugging here. That means we're not that close. If there's at least an arm's length between us, we're not that close. Okay, so I want you to have that visualization in your head when you hear this term arm's length transaction. It means we're not that close. So whenever people talk about an arm's length transaction, it means it's any kind of transaction that's between people who are not that close. So they're relatively strangers to one another. Yeah, you understand why I'm saying keep that distance? You know, we're at least an arm's length. We're not that close. So anytime you hear the term arm's length transaction, and you will hear it on exams, it means that we're not that close to each other, that people are not that close to each other. So therefore, each one of them is trying to do the best for themselves in the transaction. For instance, if you were my brother or my sister, we'd be closer than an arm's length, right?
Right.
You're my brother, you're my sister, you're my close relative. We're closer than an arm's length. So that means what is the likelihood that if there's no family drama, let's keep all that out of it. What's the likelihood I'm going to give you a good deal on the property if I sell it to you?
It's going to be a little closer.
Well, is there a bigger chance that I'm going to give you a break on the price? Is my point?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not an arm's length transaction, because I'm not going to give anybody else a break on it. I'm going to try to get as much money for the house that I'm selling, right? But, you know, a relative or somebody you know, somebody who's closer to you, less than an arm's length, the likelihood of you giving them a good deal because of that relationship, because of the influence of that relationship is there. So therefore, when appraisers try to value properties and they're looking up comparable properties to then determine the value of a subject property. Subject property is a property they're trying to appraise and determine a value for. Now they pull up comparables or comps. These are other homes that are similar to yours in the area that have recently sold. When pulling up those comps, it's important that the appraiser tries to ensure that those are arm's length transactions. Because if they use a transaction as a comparable to determine the value of another property, are they getting a true picture of what the real value is?
No.
No, because that's one of those comparables. The value was affected by the relationship of the parties. And so it's not a true picture of the market value of it. So market value assumes an arm's length transaction, that the appraiser did the valuation and made sure that the comps were not by people who are close to each other, giving each other breaks or forced to sell or what have you. So an arm's length transaction is between parties who are relatively strangers to each other. They're not too close to each other, each of them trying to do the best for themselves. So an example of what is not considered an arm's length transaction is a brother sells his home to his sister. This cannot be used as a comparable to determine a value, just like the example I just explained to you. So my explanation is a little bit better than the book because I kind of spell it out and I give you examples and whatnot. Otherwise, this is what you're highlighting.
Oh.
Length transaction is one between relative strangers, each of whom is trying to do the best for him or herself. Okay, I give you an explanation as to why it's important as well to make sure it's an arm's length transaction. So market value is an estimate of market value, is an estimate of market value. Let me see, an appraisal is an estimate of market value. An appraisal is an estimate or opinion of value based on supportable evidence and approved methods. An appraiser is an independent person trained to provide an unbiased estimate or opinion of value. Okay, so that's a decent explanation right there. It's very similar to what I gave. The market value of real estate has been defined as a price that a ready, willing, and able buyer who's not forced to buy will pay a seller who is not forced to sell after the property has had reasonable exposure to the market. And included in this definition are some following key points. Market value is the most probable price that a property will bring. How do we determine that it's the most probable price that it'll bring? Well, because we compare it to other properties similar that have recently sold. Similar in size, style, location, amenity, and condition. Payment must be made in cash or its equivalent. Both buyer and seller have to be acting without undue pressure. Oh, I got to sell because I'm in danger of foreclosure, or I just lost my job, or I need to relocate for my work. A reasonable length of time has to be allowed for the property to be exposed to the open market. And both buyer and seller must be informed of the property's assets, defects, and its potential. And it also assumes a arm's length transaction.
Okay. Oh Lord.
Market value versus price. In a perfect world, the market price and market value will be equal to each other. Because market value, we try to determine market value based on supportable evidence, and then we make adjustments for the differences in the comps, how they're different to the subject property we're trying to determine the value for. Market price, on the other hand, is the selling price. It's what the property actually sells for. So in a perfect world, if we did a great job, our estimate of value is what the property is going to sell for. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's market price. In a perfect world, it's equal to a market value. So we need to understand these different types of value. Market value versus market price. We already went over another type of value in the tax chapter. Assessed value. That's the value that the tax man determines to determine how much you're going to pay in taxes, right?
Right.
So costs relates to the past, price relates to the present, and value relates to the future. Market value is an estimate based on an analysis of comparable sales, like I just told you. That's the solid data, the evidence that an appraiser or we as a real estate agent would use to calculate the projected current value or price of the property. Now, market price is the selling price. In a perfect world, the market value and market price are one and the same. It's what the property actually sells for. It's the eventual selling price. Now, cost has little to do with value. I mean, at the beginning when the house is first built, it may, provided that they did a little research before they decided to build whatever it is they're building. But let's look at an existing structure. Say you got a house and you want to build a pool. Are you going to get every dollar back for the cost of the whatever it cost you to install that pool? Probably not. Not all improvements in real estate pay back 100%. Do they increase the value? Absolutely. But does it increase the value enough to recoup all of your money? No. It may help the house sell quicker because it has some more desirable features like a pool. Those things are nice. They're nice to have. They're more desirable, so they may get some more interest and they may increase the value a little bit. But are you going to get all that money back? Not necessarily. So we just have to understand that cost, how much it costs somebody to do something, to an improvement to their property. They should not expect 100% to recoup that money. There are certain improvements that pay back more, like square footage of living space, like having more bedrooms, or remodeling the kitchen, or putting an additional bathroom in. So cost has little to do with the current value. Cost relates to the past value. How much it cost you to build something. That was the value a while ago. How much is it worth now? Buyers don't care what the improvements cost you. They care about what the current value is, what it's worth today. And not all improvements will pay for themselves, like I just explained. So cost does not equal market value. It has little to do with it. The highest and best use is the most profitable use, the most profitable current use, or a use that'll be in demand in the reasonably near future would be the highest and best use. That's what a highest and best use is. An amenity is any tangible or intangible benefit to the property, like having a hot tub or a jacuzzi or a swimming pool, or having, fancy heated floors, or a heated toilet seat, or a bidet, or even a modified toilet that has a bidet attachment to it. The thing that squirts water on your, clean your booty, so you use less paper. They're popular in Europe and other countries. You get a lot of people in these classes, they never heard of a bidet, I got one during the great toilet paper recession of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Tell you what, when it's hard to find toilet paper, and when toilet paper, you're going to be like, yeah, I got to get me one of them, So good thing I'm a handyman, so I bought a retro.
I'd rather have a bidet than toilet paper.
Yeah, hey, listen, you should get one now, because who the hell knows what's going to happen in the future, These things can be valuable. They're good. you know. And I kind of like them now too because they clean you a little better, you know, using water instead of smearing. Yeah. Um, so these are amenities. Also, a thing like a beautiful ocean view or a mountain view, that's an intangible asset or benefit to the property, right? But it's still a benefit. You know, having a beautiful view. Which would you rather look? Have windows that overlook an alleyway, like commercial storefronts, and or would you like to have a beautiful ocean view or mountain view or something like that? You know, so these amenities are tangible or intangible benefits to the property. Now, substitution is another theory. These are all basic principles that an appraiser and we should take into consideration when valuing properties. Substitution is a value set by the cost of purchasing a similar substitute property. Now, if you have two homes with the same location and all the attributes are the same, which one would sell first? The less expensive one. If they're all exactly the same, nobody's going to pay more if the same can be had for less. That's what the theory of substitution states. And here we could highlight those things on page 306. And you see what I wrote on the side, that what I had in that previous slide. Cost relates to the past, price relates to the present, and value relates to the future. Remember, we as real estate agents try to determine market value, how much it's going to sell for. It's going to sell for based on recent sales. Recent would be the price, what they sold for. Let me know when you guys have these highlights down.
Oh, wait a minute. And then we had cost. Relates to the future. Okay. I got it.
All right. Ray, you got it too?
Ray. We at Ray?
Ray.
Yeah, I'm here. Just give me a minute. I'm here.
Okay. That's what I was just asking if you got it.
All right, I'm good.
Okay. So here's an example of substitution. We have three houses exactly the same style, location, amenity, etc. The only difference is the price. Which one would you buy?
The lower price.
Yeah, anybody would. Why pay more if the same can be had for less, right? But because everybody was thinking that, somebody got to that one first. You're too slow. So now which one would you buy?
The next lowest.
Yeah, common sense. Uh-oh, you're too slow again. Uh-oh, looks like there's a lot of demand and there's only one property left. Now it looks like we're slipping into a situation of supply and demand here, isn't this? So that's a good segue to that. So if you miss out on this one, it's probably going to sell for more than 310 because the supply is dwindling and the demand is obviously still there. So that's how supply and demand works. It's the value of the property increases if the supply decreases and the demand increases or remains constant, and vice versa. Conformity. Does the house conform to the neighborhood? Or is it all, are you the only residential property in the middle of a commercial neighborhood? Is your value going to be stable there? Is it going to be high? Having the only residential house in the middle of commercial land? Probably not.
It would decrease, right?
If you got the only residential house in the middle of a commercial neighborhood, value is probably going to be lower. Right? Who wants to live in the middle of a commercial area with all trucks coming by and such? Right. So the value of that's not going to be too stable. It's not going to be too good. You're gonna have trouble selling it. Where my office is right now, I'm above warehouses currently. We're above warehouse office space, right? But we're in a trucking area with all trucks all around. We got trucking companies across the street here, there, and everywhere. But before you turn onto my block, there's a guy, one house, a standalone house on the corner. He was probably there before all the commercial. That house was probably there before all the commercial properties were. And then since then, it developed into a commercial neighborhood. And this one guy refused to sell his house and was a holdout. Now, when I first moved my business to this location, he had a for sale sign on that. And 4 or 5 years later, still had a for sale sign on it. Obviously, you're going to have a tough time trying to sell it. He eventually sold it to somebody who wanted to use it for commercial purposes, and then they then converted it into a commercial property. They're actually in the process of still doing that right now. But that just gives you an example that properties that are not conforming to the neighborhood, to the use, for example, they don't maintain value well. This is why, like if you buy in a condominium complex, they may have all kinds of rules in place that they want you to maintain your exterior in a certain way. They don't want you painting the door bright orange or something, or having wacky decorations or changing the looks of the exterior of the building, because the uniformity maintains value better. Now, even though you can't tell if a property is a condo or a townhouse, for example, with townhouses, you can't tell the type of ownership simply by looking by a structure. Sometimes you could get a little bit of an idea because in a condominium, they would not allow you to have these ununiform patterns. Sometimes they may have different styles, but they would be alternating patterns that are consistent. It's uniform through the neighborhood. That maintains the values better in the complex. But if they're just fee simple ownership, each owner is free to do whatever they want on the exterior, and they may have a different look about it, and these values won't maintain as well. So, is the property conforming to the neighborhood? Regression is another thing to take into consideration. Your house may be beautiful. You do a great job on fixing it up and maintaining it, and you take care of the lawn, and you did a great job on maintaining your property. Your house is beautiful. However, the neighborhood around it is kind of shitty. All the homes are falling apart. They're getting boarded up. People don't take care of them. They're getting foreclosed on. Is that going to affect the value of your home?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Just remember this saying, or this theory. Just think of a ship in the ocean, the boats. You go down to the
What's that
docks,
saying? I can't.
all ships rise with rising waters and they also fall with the tides, right? So the same thing happens to neighborhoods. You know, your house can be lifted up if you got the crappiest house on the block. You don't maintain it, you don't do nothing. If all the homes around you are being built up into McMansions, but yet you got this crappy, dilapidated house, well, that neighborhood is being very much desirable right now. And because of all the improvements and how people are maintaining those properties, they're going to increase the value of your home. Because all ships rise with the tide and all ships fall with the tide. And that's an example of regression and progression, how it works. Regression is when the neighborhood's falling apart. Your neighborhood could negatively affect your value. And when the neighborhood around you is improving, that could positively affect your value. You also have a theory of anticipation, the anticipation of what's to come. Like, did you guys hear what they're building down the block over here from me? That's anticipation.
Oh,
Gotcha. That's anticipation. They're not building anything. That's
oh,
anticipation.
that's
You know,
got
I
it.
gotcha. You know, well, because now you're like, oh, why? What are they building over there? Yeah, nothing. You know, but got your head going. You know, and anticipation that something's going to be happening in an area. It could affect values positively or negatively, depending on what that is. You know. So anticipation, values can be affected on anticipation of something happening in an area, whether it's new industry that's moving in or out, or improvements that may be proposed, market changes, etc. It's basically gambling, though, if you purchase properties based on anticipation of markets rising. Look, I used to own a house in an area of Linden that I bought to fix and flip as an investment property. But in the area where that house was, they were talking about they proposed building a NASCAR racetrack. Now, you don't need to be a NASCAR fan to know that there's diehard race fans out there. You know, and wherever these racetracks are throughout the country, there is a huge boom in the economies, those local economies in those areas. And property values immediately in the vicinity skyrocket. I mean, you may be thinking, who wants to hear like race car noises all the time? Yeah, but you're thinking residential reasons. What about for commercial reasons, you know? But even residential, if it's a hotel or a rental property, you know, those race car fans, they're looking for a place to be close to that track, you know? They need a place to eat, to go dine, a place to sleep, you know? Often when there's a NASCAR race, these places get booked out a year in advance before the race. So in anticipation of that NASCAR racetrack being built in Linden, on what was previously undesirable marshland, wetlands, flood zone, it was worthless property. You'd have a tough time giving it away. Well, all of a sudden, people were tripping over each other trying to get to it. Unfortunately, that project was scrapped because they couldn't get NASCAR to condone or confirm one NASCAR race there. So because of that, if you just build a racetrack, they will not come. You know, it has to be a NASCAR racetrack. Otherwise, it's just a racetrack, you know. I, too, in anticipation of that, got in on it. Now, I didn't go buying real estate in the area like some people were, and then now are let down and stuck with some flood zone property. But I found out what they were going to name the racetrack. They were going to name it Liberty Speedway. And guess who the proud owner of LibertySpeedway.com is? You know, see, I deal in a virtual real estate, the domain names. I've been doing it for ages. Ooh, that just reminds me. I gotta.
Does that really pay?
Well, I have somebody who just made an offer for me the other day. That just reminded me that I gotta respond to them. I also own, you know, that big, the big shopping center over there in Linden on Route One. What's it called? Aviation Plaza.
Yeah, with
But it's right next to
Walmart is.
the airport there with the Home
Oh,
Depot.
across the street. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
40, there's like 45 stores over there. I had somebody that just made me an offer of $9,000 for a domain name that cost me $8 to buy. Tell me.
So
Now
how
I'm
does that-
holding out
how
on
does
it
that work?
because I
You
know
buy
that
the
that one's,
domain- you buy the domain.
yeah, I'm holding out on this one because I know that it's worth a lot more. And if not, I'm just going to develop it myself and start selling advertisements to the or advertising space there to the all the stores that are there. You know, there's a way that you could develop these things and then make a lot of money on them. You know, but you know, I've sold some of these domain names to places that never developed them, but they like last year I sold one for about $5,000, and now I looked it up to see what's going on with it. It was called VR Racing. Oh no, VR Bikes. VR Bikes. Now
You said
that can be used for a lot of different things, and you know, I don't know. I had an electric bicycle company that was thinking about doing it. Then there was a video game manufacturer that was interested in it. I had a lot of different people for different reasons. Somebody who's interested in racing, you know. VR Bikes was the domain, and person bought it for me for $5,000. Let's just say I held on to it for 3 years. You know, $8 a year it cost me for 3 years. You know, I sold it for $5,000. You tell me it's worth it or not. You know, so you know, I sold it to them, and now I see it's up for sale again. They never even developed it. Then there's another one that I bought that I owned, and I sold it to what's it? Not People. Was it People Magazine? I forget. They have an entertainment section, and I forget what that domain name was called, but I ended up selling them a domain name for $10,000. Was it 10 or 20? I forget. And then you know, I had a couple that I sold like that. You know, but you hold on to them and you're paying for them for years sometimes. But when it pays out big. It pays and then some. You know, if you know how to price them properly. Some people, they just hold on to them and they sell them for $1,000 here and there. You know, I created all top level domains that that have never been used before, and they're clean. They're not associated to spam or anything like that. So you know, I just resell them. I hold out for more than what the average person does, maybe a couple $100 or $1,000 or so. A lot of the ones I've been selling for $10,000 or more. You know, this one I wouldn't sell it for less than 40 though, because I know I can make a lot of money off of it. Yeah, you can make money on them. Domain names have sold for millions of dollars before for people that wanted them. Yeah.
Is it hard to get into it?
Nah, go to GoDaddy.com and look up a domain name, figure out a name, and buy it. You know, I usually like names for things that I come up with names for things that are in the news or in the media or trending topics and stuff, and then you could buy them and then turn around and sell them right away too. I get them for political discussions, for sections of town, for entertainment stuff, topics, you know, words that are trending in the Google Zeitgeist. You know, I mean, I get them for all kinds of stuff. I buy them and I hold on to them for all social issues, all kinds of stuff. And then I and then I put them up there for sale. If they don't sell, well, then I'll monetize them as parking, and at least they'll pay for themselves. You know, you could set up affiliate programs on them, make a little blog on them. You know.
So I guess I need to talk to you about some other streams of income, because sounds like just some small stuff that you don't even have to monitor or pay attention to.
I mean, you could even create videos and put videos on them too. Like you got hobbies and things that you like to do. How about this? Real estate related. Let's keep it real estate related on topic. You know, you know your town that you live in. Do you know the areas where to go, entertainment stuff or history about stuff? You make little videos, little skits. They don't have to be long videos. Maybe little short videos, like a video about the scenery, and then be on that video and talk about it a little bit. Oh, this is the history. This is this park, and this is a history. This battle was fought here, and this and that. And over here, you got Muncie's hot dogs and Rahway right in front of Rahway Park. And here's a place where George Washington slept right down the block. Make a little video like that, boom, post it on your website, post it on YouTube, post it on, share it on social media, like make a little comment. People will like comment on stuff like that because people love crap like that, and that's the stuff that becomes viral. It's not like, oh, do you want to buy this overpriced house in this area? You push in those kinds of links, people don't respond to that. But like things like that, they will more likely respond to it. That'll drive traffic to your sites. Plus, if you put it on YouTube, it's unique traffic, and now you can monetize it. So now you go to Google. Google has something called AdSense. You create an account with them, associate a bank account to it too. And now whenever any content, original content you make, once you have so many, YouTube changed the terms a lot. Now they get away with a lot more. It used to be that if you created this content, you could start monetizing it right away based on how many people are viewing your content. Now, Google took ownership of it. They're like, oh, you're giving away too much money. So they made it so you can't monetize it unless you have X amount of followers with so many unique visitors and views of unique contents, so they made it a lot harder to monetize, but you could still monetize stuff. I made a video about how to fold a t-shirt because I seen a video on how to do it. So I tried to do it and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I filmed myself doing it. And then I posted it on YouTube and forgot all about it. And I hit the monetize thing on there to monetize it. I totally forgot about it. Now, 2 years later, I got contacted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's Google's tax department. They're financial people, and they sent me a letter saying that Google owes me money, and if I don't give them a method of paying for it, because I never associated a bank account to the revenue, then they're going to turn it over to the state, and I'm going to have to get it from them, to the missingmoney.com, And I was like, oh, shoot, what's that about? And I went there and I looked at it. I was like, oh, my God, that's about that video I made, how to fold a shirt in 3 seconds or some nonsense like that, And I had about $10,000. It was $10,000 or $11,000 I made off of that one video.
Dang.
Yeah, there's a lot of passive ways to make money. You just, now it's AI. You can use AI to make videos, to make shirts, to make books, to make non-content books sell pretty good. You just put a design on them and put page lines on them, Interesting. Anyway, yeah, I can have classes on that stuff. So in anticipation of doing something like that,
That's anticipating.
it piques people's interest, right? So same thing with real estate. In anticipation of something happening, they get involved. All right. Excuse me. Sorry. Thank you. All right. So here are some more theoretical principles of value. Increasing and diminishing returns. Okay, so what is an increasing and diminishing return? Say that you have a kitchen in a house and it's unusable. It's a horrible condition. So here's your baseline starting point in your horrible condition that's unusable. Up to a certain point, when you remodel that kitchen, you're going to get all your money back, every penny, up to a certain point. But now you start going extreme with your kitchen makeover, your return starts diminishing. Not everybody doesn't need all the bells and whistles, the bells and whistles and stuff. You may get all your money back up to a certain point, but now when you start getting really extreme with those kitchen makeovers, your return starts diminishing. Everybody doesn't need a 100 bottle wine cooler in their kitchen with the soft touch drawers and LED lighting and accent lighting and like all of these additional costs involved. It's adding up. Your return starts diminishing. And although it's a nice feature to have, people are no longer going to want to pay top dollar for all of those things. So your return starts diminishing. That's the theory of increasing increasing diminishing returns. And then we have contribution. Are you putting money back into the property to fix it up or maintain it? If you don't, it may not maintain the value or increase the value. The value may even decrease. Or how are you using those contributions, even if you're putting money back into the house? I know your style is shag carpets. You love shag carpets. Yeah, but they're not really in anymore, so how you're investing that money is not really increasing the value on it at all. It depends on how the contribution is made. Absence of any improvements may decrease the value. And competition. Remember, we also talk about commercial property, not just residential. Profits always attract competition. If there's no competition in an area and you build it and people come, competitors will see that and they're going to want to come in and get a piece of the pie too. So look, if you got an area where there's a busy area and a lot of traffic and you put in like a place to get fast food, you're going to have killer business there. And now other competitors see that there's killer business to be had there. They're going to move in next door to you. And then that's going to start to hit your return a little bit, because it's going to hit your profits a little bit, but as more and more competitors move in. So profits attract competition. That's a good thing. Excess profits attract ruinous competition. Okay, that's a bad thing. Now, change. Nothing remains constant. And change could affect value in a positive way or a negative way. If they remap the area's flood zones, that could be negative if now your property is considered a flood zone where previously was not. Local changes in the market conditions, your local real estate markets. Maybe there's a demand for properties in the area, that'll increase it. If there's a loss of demand, that'll decrease it. If the jobs market, the jobs are all moving out of town, the major factory that had all the jobs creators from your town is shut down, well, property values may drop down as people start moving out of the area. We've got ghost towns in the United States where they used to be booming towns at one point that they're now ghost towns. Just think back to the gold mining ages, or even look at Michigan. Where all the automotive manufacturers used to be there, the big three, and then they all moved out of Michigan to Detroit. They all moved out of there and they went down to Mexico. Why? Because of government regulations and red tape and political decisions, the taxes and such, that drove them out of town. And when the jobs drove out of town and all the major industry left, what happened? Some people just abandoned their houses. You got entire neighborhoods in Detroit and in Michigan that are just like ghost towns now. These houses are being occupied by gangs now and drug dealers, and then you had changes of president who then started negotiating with these car dealers again, and they gave them incentive to move back, and now these manufacturers move back some of their operations back to Michigan, and it started building up again. However, political red tape from the local politics of the state and the towns really drove up the cost for them, so they didn't fully commit to moving all of their operations there. So although it did improve the area and jobs and the real estate market in the area and the economy, because of the local political red tape and rhetoric, it didn't. It affected it a little bit negatively. So you got the two forces are fighting against each other. So you have changes in market conditions, jobs, politics, improvements, contamination. If the properties are contaminated, it could affect the value of the property or the neighbors, or if there's just pollution in the area because of something, because of the industry. Changes in weather, flood zones, population patterns, these are all things that could affect property values and need to be taken into consideration. All things that change, how they're changing, has to be taken into consideration when trying to determine value. Now, there are three approaches to value. They are the sales comparison approach, also known as the comparative approach, we determine the value as real estate licensees by doing CMAs for the consumer or BPOs for the lenders. Appraisers do appraisals. And then we have the cost approach and the income approach. So let's highlight on page 308 the three approaches to value, which we need to memorize in itself. What are the three approaches to value? Sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. Those are the three approaches to value. So we're going to go over each one of these in detail in coming slides, but for right now, just study. You need to know the three approaches to value. That in itself could be a question. Sales comparison approach, cost approach, and income approach, and what purpose each one of them are used for. Right now, before we go into each one of them in detail, I could explain to you what, just give you a rundown.
Wait, what you doing?
Yeah, I could just give you a rundown of what they're used for. Okay, so the sales comparison approach is used to determine the cost of a property by comparing it to recently sold similar properties, similar in size, style, location, amenity, and condition that have recently sold. That would be any kind of a property you could compare using a sales comparison approach, if they have comparables. The cost approach to value is more commonly used to determine the cost of special purpose, unique, and one-of-a-kind properties that may not generate income or have comparables. The income approach to value is the approach that would determine the value of any property that generates income. A rental property, commercial properties, you get the idea. Cost approach would be used to determine the value of a church, for example, or a library. You know, these things do not generate income in the normal fashion. And there's probably not a whole lot of comparable churches in the area that are recently sold. So how do we determine the value? Well, the cost approach. And even though real estate agents don't do the cost approach, appraisers do, the cost approach is the method that's often used for these unique, special, and one-of-a-kind properties. All right. So the sales comparison approach is also the approach that's most often used by real estate agents. So that's why I have highlighted here on page 308, the sales comparison approach. This approach is most often used by brokers and salespeople. It uses comparables or comps to determine the value of a property by comparing maybe first of all, it had to have sold recently. So you got to look at the date of sale. The location, it should be in the same area. Definitely the same town. Best if it's the same neighborhood even. You got to look at the physical features of the property because no two properties are alike. I mean, you could get a builder that built 5 houses on the same block using the same blueprint, and then they would be exactly alike. But the longer you go over time, people make modifications to them, the conditions change and all that. But right now, when they're first built, they're exactly the same. They would be a perfect comp for each other if one of them sells to be able to value the other one. Unfortunately, we don't come across comps that perfect too often. But when you do, even then, you think that you got the best comp to prove to your client how much the property is worth because look, this house was built by the same builder, by the same blueprint. It's exactly the same. You don't get comps this good. This practically never happens. And you got the perfect comp right here that shows you how much your home would sell for because it just sold. And they'll still argue with you about its value and how much they want. You know, so that's the part that makes our job a little difficult is dealing with people. Sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall, you know.
If you could remove that.
Yeah. Terms of the conditions, terms and conditions of sale could also affect, you know, were there any seller concessions or special financing, you know. So it's the physical features, you know, but also the location, when the property sold, because you have to adjust for time too. You want a property that recently sold. But if you can't find one that just recently sold, but you can look further back in time and find one that did, well, you know what? Real estate markets are cyclical and they change all the time. They go up, they go down. Depending on how far back you go, you may have to make an adjustment for time. Yeah, if you take that Ottawa class teaching you on how to adjust, how to determine property values, they even give you a way to measure how to adjust the value based on when a property sold. You have to make an adjustment for market conditions and change in time, not just the features of the property and the condition of the property. So that's what is done in the sales comparison approach. And I'm going to show you when to make adjustments and how you make the adjustments up or down for the differences in the comparable properties to determine the value of a subject property. These classes, this Ottawa class, that CMA workshop is great for doing that. You could have your brokers train you, or you could take the real NAR, I think, has a course on valuing properties too. I never took that one, so I can't tell you how good or solid it is and what kind of information they give. If you take it, let me know. The Ottawa one I did take, and I take it just about every year if I can, try to get the additional materials that they provide, which are great for valuing properties. And so the CMA, the cost approach to value, is best for residential property valuation. It compares a subject property to similar comparable properties that we call comps that have recently sold. They're similar in size, style, location, amenity, and condition that have recently sold. We want to look at the sold properties, not the ones that are on the market. The sold properties give us a picture of how much that they're going to go for. When we do CMAs, we also include, you know, current properties that are on the market and under contract, but not to determine the value of a subject property. That's part of the presentation for the owner, just to show them what other properties out there they're contending with. Okay, tell them don't look at the prices on those. Those guys failed to sell so far. You know, to find out the price, we want to look at those homes that have recently sold. And when looking up comparables, you need to have at least 3. And then we're going to make adjustments in the sales price for the comps, for the differences, because we know what those comps already sold for. But they're not going to be exactly like the house you're trying to value. So we're going to have to make adjustments in those comparables to see how much that house would have sold for if it was exactly like the subject property. That's the whole idea behind this report that we're preparing. We're going to take these comparable properties, we know how much they sold for, and we're going to compare their features to the features of the house we're trying to sell, to give us an idea that if these houses were exactly like this house that sold, how much it would have sold for. So we're going to have to make adjustments for the differences. You know, if it had if it had the same amount of bedrooms, you know, one more bedroom, one less bedroom, how much is a bedroom worth, and make that adjustment to the sale price that we know that it sold for. And if that was the only difference, well, then it's really easy to tell how much the comparable, the subject property should sell for. Now, if you have several comps, now you get a price range. If they're all pretty much on par with each other, you could get a closer price range to more accurately value the property for the consumer. Now, the location should be relatively the same, definitely in the same municipality. So if like across the street's a different town, don't use those as comps. Different taxes, different taxing bodies, different community services, you know, don't use those as comps, okay? Physical features and conditions should be similar. If not, make adjustments for those differences. Terms and conditions of the property for the sale, know when to make adjustments for the differences. I'm going to show you how to do that tomorrow. But look, right here it says, if subject property is missing a feature or is in poorer condition than the comparable property, you're going to subtract from the value of the comparable to bring it to the same level. CBS, comp, better, subtract. If the subject property has a feature or is in better condition than the comparable, then add to the value of the comparable. Comp, poorer, add. You know what? To me, those things are just make it more difficult to understand. You know, I got a chart here. We're going to go over this, and I have these showing cues to give you an idea. You know, look, without knowing the value of a bedroom, for example, or a bathroom or a garage or what have you, let's just say that we're going to make an adjustment for the number of bedrooms. We got the subject property that has 3 bedrooms. A comparable property recently sold that has 4 bedrooms. So it has a feature the subject property is missing or is in better condition, okay? So we got to determine the value. If the only difference between these 2 properties is a bedroom, well, there's a difference there. So these properties would not sell for the exact same amount. But the comparable property has 1 more bedroom. We need to determine what the value for the bedroom is and then subtract that from its sale price for what we know that it's sold for. And that's bringing it down to the same condition as the subject property. And now we know how much the subject property should sell for. If that was the only difference, was 1 bedroom. Comparable property has 1 more bedroom than the subject price, determine the value of the bedroom, and then subtract it to bring it down to the same level. The idea is we're trying to make this comparable exactly the same as the subject. We already know what it's sold for. We're trying to put it in the same condition. If it had 1 less bedroom than the subject property, determine the value of a bedroom and add it to its value to bring it up to the same level. Okay, that's basically what we're going to be doing and how I'm going to explain this again to you tomorrow, because we're done with class right now. Okay, I hate doing that, ending a class right in the middle, but we're here.